Hello and welcome. My name is Kate Griffiths from Whole Self Leadership. And I'm coming on today to share with you about some of the energies at the current time as I'm seeing them through working with clients, through my own experience and trusting my intuition. So a right old mix of things in some ways. I'm not an astrologer, but I am really interested in what's happening astrologically because sometimes that can give us some clues as to what's going on in the energy. And right now is a really powerful time because things are opening up. They started opening up on the 26th of July because we have Lion's Gate on the 8th of August, which is not long now. And Lion's Gate is really opportunity to connect at the heart level because there's a lot of light codes flooding through us if we're open to that. So you might notice it as energy. It could be that you feel tired, or there could be discordant energy. Could be a positive thing, it all depends really. But it felt important to come on and talk about that because sometimes we can be afraid of what we're feeling, afraid of what's inside us. I was really reminded of that recently when I started working with a new client, and we were talking about a particular challenge or issue that they had, and I was doing this exercise with them, and normally it works really fluidly and quickly and they get some answers, but in this case, although we tried lots of different ways in, there seemed to be a huge amount of resistance, and we made some progress, and I asked them to choose some bottles, and they came up with these colours. I'm going to show you two together initially. Can you see those? They're both turquoise bottles. Now when you have turquoise in your colour DNA blueprint, then you like to make sense of things and you are more likely to trust your intellect and your mind and to go with your intuition. But there's a much bigger thing going on, especially when you get two turquoise bottles, because often indicates a numbness, an inability to feel, which kind of made sense with what was going on and with this particular client. And interestingly, they picked a third bottle, which was this one. And as you can see, that's a coral bottle. And coral is actually the complementary colour to turquoise. So just notice which of those bottles you're more attracted to. But why it's so important to allow yourself to feel, to share how you feel in places where you feel safe, is because any blocked, unexpressed, repressed or suppressed emotion can lead to dis-ease, to illness ultimately. And what was very interesting is this particular client had got cancer. And that's often what can happen because the energy has to go somewhere. So if you haven't got an outlet for it, then it can manifest in a physical form. And so how is that related to the energy of now? Well, the other bottle that came up for me at the moment was this one. So just notice how you feel about that indigo bottle. You might love it, you might not. This is the bottle that relates to an initiation, but also sometimes it comes up when we need to be a bit more structured about things. And when you took the turquoise and the indigo together, suggesting that we need to be careful about the mists of illusion that are around. People that seem to be our friends perhaps and are not, or people that, are saying one thing and doing another. Because one of the things that I've become aware of on the spiritual path myself, and I've fallen into that trap too, is that, we can think we're really advanced, that we're above others. And in a way that's, these colours, the turquoise and the indigo, can relate to the mystery schools that were around back in the Egyptian times. They had initiations and they had lots of secrets. And this sort of belief that information is power. I'll only work with a certain type of person. I'll only work with those that are really advanced spiritually. We have to be careful with things like that because it can be the ego talking. Because the whole point of the spiritual journey, as I see it, is that we're to be here not just for our own, development, but to be in service to others, to help them and to enable them to see more. And actually, as we give, so we receive. And interestingly, if you take the colour that sits opposite to the indigo, you get this one, this beautiful gold colour that represents wisdom, and sort of saying that wisdom is much more valuable than straight knowledge. But sometimes when it's coming up in the negative, it's about control, the need to hold on, to control the outcome, to control how people see something or see you or whatever. And it's interesting because a few weeks ago I was working with colour combinations and I really, really loved those two. I think they're a very powerful set of colours together. Can really power through things, motor through things. And interestingly, because we already had the coral, it's kind of like, what do you get when you see the coral and the gold together? Which pairing do you prefer? I know I have a much greater preference for the turquoise and the blue, the indigo, or ultimately really the indigo and the gold. But if we were using the coral, one alternative would be these two, and they seem to go together much better. It's another gold, but it's a paler gold. And interestingly, when we get those two colours together, we combine them into a bottle, we get this one, which is called the generosity bottle. So we're being called to be generous. And just notice how you feel about each of these combinations and which one's really speaking to you. And feel free to leave a comment below. I'm happy to respond or get in touch if you want to know more information. The last bottle I wanted to show you, which is a combination of the indigo and the coral, two of the first colours we saw, is this one. And I found that often this is picked by men that are dealing with wounds that they've had, perhaps as children. So, what do you get when you see this colour combination? For me, it reminds me of Chiron, the wounded healer. And I think the message for the moment is to always remember that however much we are in contact with the divine, we're always divine and human, so perfectly imperfect. Or as I like to say, we are both wounded and whole. And that's the promise of the coral, wholeness. It's have that wholeness, we need to be really in our body. So I want to finish, I'm conscious I've been on for quite a long time, to share some of the spritzers that also relate to these colours. So there's this beautiful one, which is a favourite at the moment for me, and that's Coral Dragon. It's slightly deeper, more orangey coral than the bottle that I showed you. And it really represents the feminine power and the feminine energy. There's no forcing with this one. It's a bit like, are you a bee or are you a flower? The flower knows its own beauty, knows its own scent and essence, and doesn't have to try. It sits there and the bees and other insects come to it, fall in love with it. It's much less harder work. You know, it's much easier to be in ease and grace and flow as the flower than it is as the bee. Although both, of course, are needed. And then we have the indigo spritzer, which is really good to work with if you're working on your building up your intuitive muscle. And one that's been a favourite of mine of late is this beautiful dolphin bottle. It's a slightly, just a tad paler, more blue than indigo. And you can see there's some sparkles in it. It's reminding us not to take ourselves too seriously and remember to play. We're all meant to have a bit of play. And then if you really like the turquoise, perhaps go for this one. This is Turquoise Dragon. And there is a link to Kuan Yin, to compassion, but also about dreaming your future reality into being by holding that vision and connecting to the pineal gland. So what's really important there is to really take a moment to see your pineal gland, which sits behind your third eye, in the centre of your head, and see it filled with light, radiating light, and then it is so much easier to connect to your vision. So I hope those words are useful for you as you go into August and into the Lion's Gate. Because after all, intimacy, as I was exploring with my community last week, is short for into me I see. And that's why so many people find it so difficult, because they are almost scared of having a relationship with themselves, of spending that time, of being with all of who they are, warts and all. But the more we can do that, the deeper we can go and the more we can hold. So go well, my lovelies. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.